Like he, him, like it's chill. Like it's chill. Okay, cool. Hey you guys, what's up? It's Will McPhee, and today I wanted to make a video about being agender. What agender means and how it applies to me personally, and sort of offering you guys my personal experiences in being agender. So this is my agender coming out video, if you will. So there's already tons of great sources and information for learning about what being agender means, but I wanted to go ahead and read the definition for you guys so you have a little bit better of a picture for what it is. So agender is a term which can literally be translated as without gender. It can be seen either as a non-binary gender or as a statement of not having a gender identity. People who identify as agender describe themselves as one or more of the following: genderless or lacking gender, neutrally gendered, having an unknown or undefinable gender, not aligning with any gender, having no other words that can fit their gender identity, not knowing or not caring about gender as an internal identity and or as an external label, deciding not to label their gender or identifying more as a person than any gender at all. So I also wanted to clarify on the differences between sexuality and gender, because they can be a little bit confusing if you're not super educated on what they are. So I've heard it put as sexuality is who you go to bed with or who you don't go to bed with, and gender is who you go to bed as. So as you can see, they are totally different. They're not the same thing. There's a lot of confusion on gender identity and sexuality kind of influencing one or the other, and while they obviously can overlap, they are not the same thing. Another thing I wanted to touch on is the term gender dysphoria and what it means. So gender dysphoria is defined as a mismatch between the gender you identify as and the gender that is placed onto you by society. Gender dysphoria can occur in times in which a person feels like their body doesn't align with their internal gender, their sex doesn't align with their gender, or in a time in which they feel like other people have defined them as a gender that they do not identify as, which can cause an overall feeling of dysphoria, anxiety, or unease. Alright you guys, so now that I've laid a little bit of foundation for the definition of agender and what it kind of means, along with some other terms that are attached to it, I thought I'd go ahead and give you guys my own personal experiences and sort of my own story in being agender. So describing my personal gender is a little bit more difficult than, say, describing my sexuality, just because gender is something that is so much more complex and mysterious to me personally. So I'm gonna do the best I can to paint a fairly clear picture of what being agender means for me specifically. So I feel like I have always been agender, but I did not classify myself as such until I learned what it was, which was probably about a year or two ago. So super recent. But just like sexuality, gender can take a lifetime to understand and figure out. So I have fully accepted the fact that I may identify as agender now, and I may not down the road, so we'll see. So pronouns are a really big thing for people who are not cisgendered, people who are transgender, people who are non-binary, or people who are agender like myself. A lot of agender people prefer to be called them and they pronouns, which is just a way of referring to them in a gender neutral way. A lot of people make the argument that this is not grammatically correct, but it actually is. If you think about describing a stranger or someone who you have not seen or who you don't know their gender, you're going to refer to them as them or they. It's not grammatically incorrect. It may feel a little bit funny, but it is not incorrect. So for me personally, I do not mind he, him pronouns. They're just something that I've grown very used to, and they do not bother me. I love it when people refer to me as them, they, but I definitely do not expect people to, as of right now. I mean, that could change in the future, but right now I am fine with he, him pronouns. But with that being said, I do find myself being a lot more bothered when people refer to me as like gendered nouns, if that makes sense. Like people calling me young man or boy or just man, anything that describes me as a gendered noun will kind of upset me a little bit. I don't like being referred to as a male. That's the easiest way to phrase that, but pronouns are chill. So I feel like one of the best ways I can communicate my perspective to you guys is through offering you some of my experiences. So I kind of went back through my childhood way before I understood what gender even was, back when I was under the impression that everyone was either male or female. And I went back and sort of thought of some of those times in which I didn't feel like I quite fit either one of those. So I thought I'd share with you guys a couple of those times. So one of the first things that I usually think of is school, and times in which I felt like large or extreme amounts of gender dysphoria was when we were divided as a class, boys and girls. I'm not talking about for like sex education where you're learning about, you know, the sex of your body. I'm talking about times in which boys and girls would be divided up for like group activities or games or things of that nature. I would always feel like I didn't belong on the boys' side. I never felt like I belonged on the girls' side either, but of course that was always the side I wanted to go to because most of my friends were girls. But looking back on it, I didn't feel like I belonged to either side, so it was always very confusing and strange for me that, you know, I would be grouped with boys when I didn't feel like I was a boy. Also, growing up, one of my closest friends was a girl, and I can remember times in which she would go out with her like friends who were girls and get their nails painted or do something that was traditionally more feminine, and I was never invited to come, not because my friend didn't love me, but it wouldn't occur to her to have a boy come out and partake in these more traditional feminine activities. So I think I always felt a little left out in that sense, not only because, you know, I had my friend doing fun things that I couldn't, you know, do, but I felt like the thing that divided me was being considered a male when I wasn't. Okay, here's another example. I thought this one was kind of funny, but also kind of sad. But it's just super specific for me. Do you guys remember how, like, when you would go through the drive-thru at a fast food restaurant and your parents would order you a kid's meal and they would always ask boy or girl? And basically your answer to that question was if you received a boy toy or a girl toy. And I always felt, I always remember not liking the way that sounded. I know that this sounds so, like, subjective and strange and, like, formless, but I mean, I'm just being honest. I never liked the way that sounded, and it felt strange to have someone ask me if I was a boy or a girl, because it didn't feel like I was either. And also on top of that, the level of sexism that goes into what type of toy is traditionally for a boy and what type of toy is traditionally for a girl. That's a whole nother video, but you get what I'm saying. So another sort of funny thing that comes to mind is I remember in elementary school, we had to make these projects where we would film ourselves interviewing ourselves. And I interviewed myself as like a seahorse. I think it was for a project on like biology. I'm not really sure. But I remember when I played the interviewer, I had this like thick black wig on, and I named myself Bashinsky, based off of like the Bashinsky Jewelers. I think I just thought it was a really like funny name. I was watching a lot of iCarly at the time. I don't know. But I decided to go by Bashinsky as the interviewer, and at the end of the interview, I remember I put on like a song and started dancing to it, and I remember the teachers always thought it was really, really funny. And I remember my teachers like asking me about Bashinsky, and they were like, so is it hard to become him? And I was like, oh, no, Bashinsky's not a boy. And they were like, oh, okay, so is it hard for you to become her? And I was like, no, Bashinsky doesn't have a gender. Like, I just remember thinking, like, Bashinsky is Bashinsky. Like, Bashinsky doesn't have a gender. Bashinsky just throws on this, like, thick matted black wig and does their own thing. And I'm not saying that Bashinsky was, like, the extension of who I wanted to be, but I think it's funny that in a situation where I was playing another character and I got to write and come up with another character. That character was genderless. Alright, you guys, so that was the last story that I had prepared. I can definitely think of some more. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Hopefully in the future I'll be able to make some more videos about being agender because it's a super fascinating topic. And basically, in conclusion, I feel like everybody should have the confidence and the strength to be able to explore their own sexuality and gender and all those amazing identities, because it can, like I said, take a lifetime to figure out. So I encourage you to be you, and until my next video, bye sexy.